Revealed, the incredible woman who gave up everything for survival then discovered true love. In the heart of Oakwood, where the autumn leaves whispered secrets to the wind, Sarah felt like she was treading a tightrope. Day by day, she danced between the demands of 2 jobs at the diner, trying to keep her kids' spirits high after the loss of their father. The weight of the world rested heavily on her shoulders. She's known around town as the single mother who smiles through suffocating grief, pouring coffee and flipping pancakes, weaving herself into the fabric of a community that both uplifted and scrutinized her. Yet, behind her bright facade, she battled the relentless loneliness that clawed at her nights, an echo of her late husband's laughter haunting her daily. Amid the steam rising from the griddle and the chatter of the regulars, she found solace. Each morning brought familiar faces: Mr. Thompson with his weathered hands, always ordering his usual, and the young couple planning their wedding over shared waffles. With every shared laugh and tear, the diner became a makeshift family, a lifeline tethering her to sanity. The constant buzz of life reminded her of resilience, yet as she wiped her brow and poured another cup, the dread of financial instability hung over her like a dark cloud, ready to storm at any moment. One fateful night, however, an unforeseen tragedy struck. Flames devoured their quaint home at the edge of town, leaving nothing but ashes and heartbreak in their wake. Panic surged as her children awoke in fright, the home they knew reduced to smoke and char. Sarah felt her entire world crumble, the very foundation she'd fought to build torn away in an instant. With nowhere left to turn, she faced her greatest fear: would asking for help mean she'd lost the battle against judgment? Then Tom entered the scene, a local veteran with a past shrouded in pain and haunted memories. He stood at the diner entrance one morning, eyes burdened but warm as he offered help. Sarah's heart raced with anger and gratitude. He bore scars that whispered of struggles she understood too well. How could she accept assistance from someone who knew the world's harsh judgment all too clearly? Yet, in their quiet moments together, she found his company oddly soothing. With each conversation, they peeled back layers of pain and fear, revealing the raw humanity beneath the scars. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Each day felt like a hurdle as Sarah juggled her fears and dreams, the bank's foreclosure notice looming large. Heart racing, she remembered Tom's offer. Could she set aside her pride long enough to accept his help? Would the community that had watched her struggle from the sidelines extend a hand, or would they cast judgment? As she stood at the edge of vulnerability, contemplating her next move, Sarah felt an unexpected spark, a glimmer of hope igniting in her chest. Could she take that leap? Or would she let go of love and support, choosing instead to cling to the weight of solitude? As dawn broke over Oakwood, Sarah stood in her kitchen, staring blankly at the debris that had once been a home. The sun spilled into the room, illuminating the remnants of her past life, the warmth contrasting sharply with the cold reality she faced. The breakfast routine with the kids had turned into an exercise in survival. She didn't know how to be a mother while grappling with the loss of their home and the crushing weight of her decisions. Mom! The urgent call from Lily snapped Sarah back to the present. She found her daughter standing in the doorway, wide-eyed and clutching a teddy bear, the only piece they had managed to salvage from the fire. It was a small, seemingly insignificant part of their lives, but to Lily, it represented comfort, a thread tying them to happier times. I can't find my other shoe, Lily complained, the edge of worry sneaking into her voice. Sarah knelt down beside her, forcing a smile, hoping to mask her heartache. Let us look together. They rummaged through the boxes that were now stacked in the living room, remnants of their life piled high like unanswered questions. They chatted back and forth, an awkward attempt at normalcy despite the absence of the laughter that usually filled their home. As they searched, Sarah's thoughts drifted to Tom. His willingness to help had surprised her. She remembered the way he looked at her, with understanding and no judgment. But accepting help felt like a betrayal. Did needing him make her weak, or could it be a sign of strength? Every conflicting thought twisted her stomach in knots. Eventually, they found the shoe beneath a pile of clothes. Lily squealed in delight, and for a moment, Sarah's heart swelled. See, we can find anything if we work together, she encouraged, tucking a loose strand of hair behind Lily's ear. Just like you and Mr. Tom, Lily said innocently, her eyes sparkling with childlike wisdom. Sarah's heart twisted. Would relying on Tom deepen her sense of shame or lighten the burden they all carried? Would they truly rebuild, or was she merely chasing shadows? Later that evening, the diner bustled with patrons. Sarah was moving from table to table, pouring coffee and delivering plates of food with practiced ease, but her mind was elsewhere. Each smile she exchanged, each laugh she heard, felt like a lifeline. The community that once felt so heavy with judgment now enveloped her with warmth. It was during a quiet moment, while she wiped down the counter, that she noticed Tom sitting alone with a cup of coffee. He had been coming by more often since the fire, not just to offer help but to share a bit of his own story too. Gathering her courage, she approached him. "Can we talk?" Tom nodded, a glimmer of understanding in his eyes. They found a quiet corner, the hum of the diner fading to a soft backdrop as they exchanged thoughts about loss, resilience, and the challenges ahead. "I can help you," he said gently, his gaze steady. "But you have to let me." As he spoke, hope ignited in Sarah, battling against the shadows of doubt. Could she trust him? Could she trust herself? An unexpected feeling blossomed between them, something raw and almost frightening. As she looked deep into his eyes, a spark flickered, and she realized she wanted to take that leap. But little did she know, decisions would have consequences that could either unite or tear them apart. Would she find the strength to accept help, or would fear take hold once more? The night deepened with unspoken promises hanging in the air, as her heart raced with the uncertainty of what lay ahead. In that moment, she decided to embrace what was without knowing what tomorrow might bring. But just as a smile began to form on her lips, she heard a shout from the diner entrance, and it would change everything. Sarah's heart jumped as the diner door swung open with a loud crash. The chatter of late-night diners faded, replaced by the sharp intake of breath from the crowd. She turned, eyes wide, sensing the sudden tension in the air. A figure stood silhouetted against the glowing lights outside, tall and solid. The flash of familiarity sent a chill down her spine. "Sarah!" The voice boomed. It was her ex-husband, Mark. The room fell silent. Mark never intended to be part of her life again, not since the divorce had split them apart like a crack in ice. She hadn't seen him in months, not since the fire, or the chaos that followed. His appearance felt like a jolt, both electrifying and terrifying. "What are you doing here?" Sarah's voice shook, caught between disbelief and anger. Mark stepped inside, shedding the night like a heavy coat, revealing a vulnerability she hadn't expected. "I heard about the fire. I wanted to check on you and the girls." Distrust bubbled within her. "You're only here because you feel guilty. You left us when things got tough." With a deep breath, Mark closed the distance. "I made mistakes, I know. But I'm here now, and I want to help." The words hung between them, heavy with implications. She could see the wariness in his eyes settle into something softer, a longing for redemption. Tom watched the exchange from their corner, a distant storm brewing behind his composed exterior. Sarah felt trapped between the two men. One represented the life she'd fought so hard to escape, and the other represented new beginnings. "Help? You think you can just waltz back in and fix this?" Her voice trembled as Mark ran a hand through his hair, clearly taken aback by her forceful tone. I didn't come here to argue. I just want what's best for our girls." The mention of the girls sent a pang through her heart. In moments like this, her deep-seated yearning to protect them surged stronger than her resentment towards him. Lily and her younger sister, Emma, peered around the diner, oblivious to the conflict brewing. Sarah's protective instincts kicked in. The moment they saw their father, she could only imagine the emotional whirlwind that would ensue. "Mom?" Lily called out, curiosity laced with concern. "Who is that?" Sarah swallowed hard, caught in a web of emotions. She had to play this right. She didn't want to tear the girls between parents again. It's nothing, sweetheart. Just an old friend." But Mark's eyes widened, pleading but also resolute. "If you let me in, Sarah, I can help get things back to normal. I know the community has been trying to raise funds for you." The idea of charity made Sarah bristle. She wasn't a damsel in distress, she was a mother fighting for her family. "I'm managing," she shot back, turning her head to hide the tears stinging her eyes. "Are you?" His words sliced through her defenses, causing her to falter. In that moment, the warmth she felt moments before with Tom dissipated, and she was left standing on a cliff, unsure of which direction to jump. Suddenly, Tom excused himself, standing up with an intensity that pulled her focus. He walked towards them, his expression serious. "I think this is a conversation you two need to have. Alone." She felt a mix of gratitude and fear surge within her at his words. Did Tom trust her enough to handle this? Or was he stepping back because he saw no future for them? The door swung gently, catching the attention of the rest of the diner as Tom took a deep breath. "But, if you're feeling overwhelmed, I can still help." "You don't have to do this alone, Sarah." The tension level in the room peaked, wrapped tightly with uncertainty and echoes of the past. While the fire might have taken their home, it hadn't extinguished the connections that lingered. This was Sarah's moment, her time to decide whether to face her past or step towards her future. As she stared at Mark, then turned to look at Tom, she felt the sheer weight of it all. What would she choose? Just then, a loud crash echoed outside. The diner's lights flickered, and an uneasy silence fell upon the crowd. What had happened? Now. The night was far from over, and Sarah's heart raced with the anticipation of what was about to unfold. Would her past catch up to her, or would she finally find a way to reclaim her future? The diner buzzed with murmurs as the patrons strained to peek outside. The unsettling crash echoed again, but this time it was accompanied by frantic footsteps. Sarah's heart pounded as she instinctively moved closer to the girls, crouching down to reassure them. "It's okay, sweethearts. Just stay right here," she whispered, her voice steady despite the quaking in her chest. Mark shifted, uncertainty flickering across his face. "Should we check?" Before Sarah could respond, the door swung open again with another jarring bang. A young man burst in, his face pale and glistening with sweat. He was breathing heavy, as if he had just run a marathon. "There's a fire. A real fire just down the street," he exclaimed, his voice frantic. The room erupted, a chorus of gasps echoing around them. "What?" Sarah felt the world tilt beneath her. The fire? The irony cut deep, reminding her of the chaos that had already burned through her life not long ago. "It's spreading fast," the young man continued. "The whole block is on alert. They're clearing people out." Panic skated through the diner. Families turned toward each other, trying to determine their next move. But Sarah was frozen, her mind a whirlpool of fear and confusion. "Sarah, we need to go. Now." Mark's voice pierced through her daze, but it also twisted her gut. Did she really want to align herself with him again, even in an emergency? "Mom!" Lilia's face bore a mix of fear and concern. "What's happening? Mom, please." Emma clung to her leg, wide-eyed. The fire was a visceral threat, and it reminded her too much of the past. But in that moment, clarity struck. It didn't matter who was with her, what mattered was keeping her girls safe. Without thinking, Sarah moved toward the door, determination rebuilding inside her. "Okay, we need to get out of here. Just follow me." As they pushed through the crowd, Sarah felt Mark at her side, his presence both reassuring and suffocating. When they stepped outside, the acrid smell of smoke filled the air, and a blanket of confusion lay thick before them. People were rushing in every direction, and fire trucks roared through the streets, sirens blaring. "Over here!" Sarah shouted. She spotted a cluster of families gathering near the parking lot. It seemed the safest spot. They made their way there, Sarah gripping Lilia's hand tightly while Mark held Emma. A part of her wanted to shake him off, to demand that he stay away, but the pragmatic side recognized they were united by the urgent need to protect their daughters. The chaos faded into a blur as Sarah's heart shrank with each passing second. The community they had built together, memories etched into every corner of the town, felt suddenly fragile. "Mom, I'm scared." Lily's voice trembled, tugging at the pieces of Sarah's heart that had become so guarded. "I know, baby," she whispered, kneeling to scoop both girls into her arms, embracing them tightly. "It's going to be okay. We'll figure this out together." Mark stood on the periphery, watching, but Sarah didn't look at him. This was not about him, it was about her girls, her family. Then, from the corner of her eye, she spotted a commotion near the diner's entrance. A figure was emerging from the smoke, steadfast and determined. "Who is that?" she murmured, squinting to see better. The figure stepped forward, and Sarah's breath hitched. It was Tom, looking as if he had braved the flames himself. He rushed to them, eyes wild with urgency. "I was looking for you," he yelled over the din. "Are you all right?" The reunion brought a breath of solace, but confusion clung to every word spoken. Mark and Tom locked eyes for a fleeting moment. In that intense gaze, Sarah saw questions forming, tensions rising, and her shattered world hanging in balance. The night had become a whirlwind of emotions, and here they all stood bound by danger, connected by fear. "Sarah!" Mark shouted, pulling her attention away from Tom's fierce gaze. "We have to move now. We can't stay here." Did she trust him? Did she want to trust Tom? In her heart, the answer lay obscured beneath layers of unresolved feelings. Suddenly, a loud explosion rocked the street, sending everyone into motion, scattering in panic. The choice loomed before her like an unquenchable flame. Who would she turn to in this moment of truth? The fire raged on, but Sarah felt the flames of her heart burn just as fiercely, caught between a past that threatened to engulf her and a future with possibilities waiting to be claimed. As she looked at each familiar face, another loud crack echoed behind her, a veil of smoke rising like an omen. Sarah could only hope for a guide in the coming storm, and a choice that might change everything. The shockwave of the explosion reverberated through the street, cracking the grip of Sarah's thoughts like fragile glass. Instinctively, she pulled her girls closer, their small bodies trembling against her. The din of chaos consumed them, but her focus narrowed down to the narrowed eyes of those she loved. "Come on, we have to go," Mark shouted, grabbing Sarah's arm, urgency igniting every word. It felt desperate, almost frantic, but there was a flicker of familiarity laced within his urgency. "Where?" Sarah yelled back, her anxiety rising as she scanned the surrounding sea of panicked faces and blaring sirens. Their familiar hometown now seemed like a scene from a nightmare, a script she hadn't signed up for. "Anywhere but here. We need to find a safe place," Mark replied, his grip tightening, as if he were afraid she might slip away. "Don't touch me." The words flew out of her mouth before she could halt them, a firestorm of emotion ignited by his grip. Panic turned to anger based on a history that had nothing to do with this moment. Beside her, Tom stepped forward, ready to support her with a calm confidence that soothed the wild beat of her heart. "Sarah, listen. Trust me, okay? We need to get to the park down the street. It's safer than here." Tom gestured toward a familiar park where they had shared countless afternoons. His eyes were clear and resolute, igniting something deep within her, battling the memories of fractures and heartache. Lily squeezed her hand tighter, and Emma's little fingers slipped just a bit. Sarah's heart wrenched at how tiny they felt, how desperately they needed her. She fought to keep the flame of her resolve alive, to shield them from this whirlwind of chaos. "Okay," she said, her voice softer now, fueled by the urgency to protect her girls. "You're right. The park." They began to move, weaving through the crowds that had transformed into a living tapestry of panic and desperation. Sarah's sense of direction flared as she remembered the way to the park, every familiar landmark bringing both comfort and sadness. As they pushed through the onlookers, Mark fell in step beside them, filling the air with an electric tension. There was a mix of old emotions swirling dangerously close to the surface, a flicker of what they once had and the reality of what was crumbling around them. But Sarah simply breathed in the acrid air, forcing her thoughts to focus on her girls. "Mom, what if the fire gets to us?" Lily's voice quivered, piercing through Sarah's coping mechanism. The nostalgia of past troubles never far behind it. Sweetheart. We're getting away from it." Sarah knelt down again, holding Lily's face in her hands, looking into her daughter's wide eyes. I promise. We're going to be okay. Then, a dark plume of smoke rolled towards them with a fierce gust. Sarah felt the heat brush her skin. The trees at the park beckoned a safe haven. They hurried, the sound of the community in turmoil filling the air. As they reached the park entrance, an overwhelming sense of relief washed over her. Yet, she couldn't help but glance back, scanning the chaos and the upturned faces that mirrored her fears. Stay close, Mark urged, his tone commanding yet comforting. For the moment at least, they were in this together, something she never thought she would be willing to accept. Just as they settled at the edge of the park, a siren echoed in a low distance, a reminder that this night was far from over, but when she turned to look at Tom, his frown reflected a deeper concern. Sarah, we need to leave the city. The fire, it's not going to stop easily. A tight knot formed in her stomach. Leave? Was that even an option? The connections, the memories, everything she knew. Would she truly abandon them for this chaos? The weight of an ultimatum sat heavily on her chest. She could see her future seem to crystallize in that single moment. Sarah! Mark reached out again, his voice urgent. What are we going to do? Caught in the convergence of choices, she felt the world teetering on an edge again, a decision looming that could redefine their lives. Which path would she take when every route ahead seemed treacherous? Behind the veil of danger, the fire raged on, but beneath that chaos, perhaps just perhaps there lay a spark of hope waiting to ignite within her once more. Would she dare to step into the flame? The air was thick with uncertainty and the kind of fear that clung to the skin like a damp fog. Sarah wiped her brow, the desperate heat merging with her rising panic. She surveyed the park, a strange mix of safety and dread. Sarah, we have to decide now, Thomas' voice cut through the chaos. If we don't leave soon, we could be trapped. A flurry of uneasy thoughts swarmed in her mind. How could she abandon the town where she had built her life, her memories? Yet the distant shadows of flames danced ominously on the horizon, whispering warnings of destruction. Lily tugged at her shirt, eyes wide, asking silently if everything would be okay. Emma, still clutching her mother's hand, swayed nervously by her side. It was in those small moments, with her girls anxiously awaiting her guidance, that Sarah felt the weight of her responsibility more than ever. Mark shifted closer, his breath warm against her ear. Please, just say the word. We can get out and find a shelter. Anywhere is better than here. Sarah turned, meeting his gaze. His eyes were filled with an earnest desperation. Once, they had faced the world together, believing in one another, but now that bond felt fractured and fragile. Trusting him again was a risk she couldn't make lightly, yet that familiar tug of connection still lingered beneath the fear. Sarah, this isn't just about us, Tom gently reminded her. Your girls deserve safety. You deserve a chance to build a future. The air felt heavy with fate as she contended with the enormity of the decision. An agonizing twist of her heart made her realize that no matter how much she wanted to cling to the past, right now, survival was paramount. With a deep breath, Sarah made her choice. Okay, she declared, her voice wavering but resolute. We leave now. Tom, you lead the way. Follow me, he said, urgency propelling them forward. They moved swiftly, the sound of chaos falling behind them as they slipped through the park's entrance. Each step further from the familiar brought mixed feelings of loss and anticipation. The streets were eerily quiet as they navigated the debris of the recent explosion, shadows creeping along walls as if embodying the ghosts of memories long abandoned. About halfway down the block, Sarah paused, glancing back to take in the darkening sky behind them. She could feel those haunting memories closing in, but she shook them off, reminding herself that now was not the time to dwell on what was left behind. They reached a small clearing where the road forks, and Tom stopped, surveying their options. We can head toward the interstate. There should be shelters along the highway. Sarah nodded, feeling a flicker of hope. Let us do it. Just a second, Mark's voice cut through, a mix of reluctance and determination. What if we find a vehicle? Something to help us get out faster? Sarah felt her heart quicken. The thought of finding a way out resonated deep within her. In every TV show she had ever watched, the good guys found a safe haven. But the reality of their situation weighed down her optimism. It was all too easy to lose sight of hope. Let us check this nearby parking lot, Tom suggested. We might be able to find something. As they moved toward the flickering lights of a small lot, anxiety crept in again. Each car that looked abandoned stoked a fire of anger and injustice. Why should they have to flee from their home, from everything they had built? Suddenly, a distant rumble echoed, shaking the ground beneath their feet. Sarah looked up, dread racing through her, realizing the intensity of the situation. In that moment, the world seemed to contract once more, squeezing her heart. Mom! Lily's voice echoed, breaking her concentration. What's happening? Nothing, sweetheart. It's okay, Sarah assured, though uncertainty gnawed at her insides. Tom's face revealed his concern, and in that exchange, she saw the crucial intersection of her life unfold. Should she cling to comfort or embrace the unknown? Should she trust the road ahead or succumb to fear's intoxicating embrace? As they reached the lot, an old SUV caught her eye. It looked battered and worn, but it was intact. Cracking the door open, she hoped against hope it would still turn over. They approached cautiously, wary of what lay beyond. Would this vehicle, this chance, lead them towards safety or deeper into the firestorm waiting for them? The weight of uncertainty threatened to drown her, but one thing was clear: Sarah's spark was igniting into a blazing resolve. She was ready to fight for the life she wanted. And as she gripped the door handle, she realized they were at the cusp of something far greater than just survival. But would it lead to their salvation or their doom? With a gentle tug, Sarah pulled the SUV's door open, revealing a familiar interior lined with dust and the scent of neglect. The darkness within felt oddly comforting, a cocoon that promised escape from the chaos beyond. She took a step back, her heart racing as unease washed over her. Are you sure about this? Mark's voice was laced with worry, echoing her own thoughts. What's the alternative? Keep running? Tom urged, glancing anxiously at the distant smoke on the horizon. Lily and Emma squeezed each other's hands tightly, their wide eyes reflecting the fear that lurked just beneath the surface. Sarah knelt beside the open door, peering into the SUV's cabin. Wires dangled like a web from the steering column, and the headlights didn't spark much confidence, but all she needed was one flicker of hope. Let me try, she said, determination overcoming her self-doubt. She sat down in the driver's seat, adjusting the mirror instinctively, as if it might bring back the familiar routine of her life. She searched for the ignition. A quick twist, a prayer on her lips, and the engine cracked to life with an angry cough, sputtering like an old dog trying to bark. Come on. Come on. She urged under her breath, clutching the steering wheel as if it were her lifeline. The girls cheered, though the sound barely reached her ears. All her focus was on the engine and the distant rumbles that reminded her of both the fire and the urgency of decision. Mark was suddenly at her side, leaning through the passenger side. I think we got it. Get the girls in. Sarah turned, waving the girls to her, but before they could scramble inside, another tremor shook the ground. This one felt more intense, as if the earth itself was warning them. Emma stumbled, but Mark caught her, his grip steady against the chaos, gripping the wheel tighter. Sarah shouted, "Get in, now!" The panic surged again, but she squashed it down. She couldn't show weakness. Not now. The girls clambered into the back seat, their hearts beating as fast as hers. Once they were settled, she glanced back at Tom, who was scanning the horizon with a mix of fear and determination. Let us go! He shouted as he jumped in beside her. With the roar of the engine echoing around them, Sarah pressed the gas pedal. The SUV lurched forward, its tires spinning on the wet pavement before gaining traction and shooting down the narrow street. Hold on! She yelled, her voice barely carrying over the engine's growl. As they navigated the road, weaving between debris, Sarah's heart raced. She felt the weight of her family's lives resting squarely on her shoulders. Would this vehicle really be their salvation or simply another trap waiting to ensnare them? Look! Up ahead! Emma pointed. Sarah's eyes followed her daughter's finger to a gathering of people near a building silhouetted against the flames. The sight sent a chill down her spine. They were all looking toward the fire, some panic in their eyes, and others were already in motion. Should we stop? Lily asked, her small voice trembling. What if they're dangerous? Mark eyed the gathering skeptically. Sarah's heart twisted. Each face told a story of desperation, much like theirs. We have to see, we can't just leave them. She had to believe there was hope, even among the shadows of despair. As she pulled the SUV to the side, dread settled in the pit of her stomach. This could be a moment of solidarity, or the ultimate test of her courage. The group noticed them approaching, expressions shifting from fear to curiosity. In those fleeting seconds, Sarah realized their shared struggle forged a connection, one that transcended their individual fears. "Sarah," Tom cautioned, his voice soft but urgent, "we don't know if it's safe. Every second counts." But her heart was already set. "I can't just drive past, not when they need help." As she opened the door, ready to step into the unknown, she knew this choice would change everything. But would crossing that threshold lead her toward connection and camaraderie, or expose her family to greater danger? The ground shook once more. And Sarah stepped out, ready to face whatever came next. But as she did, a figure broke free from the crowd, rushing toward her, their intentions unreadable. Then, just as she felt the weight of the world on her shoulders, she heard a voice call her name from the throng, a voice that shook her to the core. Would this reunion be a blessing or a curse amidst the chaos? The world around Sarah became a blur as she turned toward the voice. It was a name she hadn't heard in years, resonating in her heart like an echo. "David?" she whispered, disbelief wrapped in hope. He pushed through the crowd, his face smudged with dirt, eyes wide with recognition. It had been so long since their paths had crossed, and the memories flooded her. They had once shared dreams, laughter, and plans that seemed unreachable. But the world had shifted, leaving their lives in disarray. "I can't believe it's you." David's voice carried a mix of relief and urgency. He reached her, and for a fleeting moment, it felt like they were the only two people in a chaos-filled world. Yet, the reality of their situation clawed at her with every heartbeat. "Are you all right?" She searched his face for signs of trauma. "What happened?" "They were saying not now, Sarah. There's not time." He glanced back nervously, the weight of impending danger evident in his expression. "I was hoping I'd find you. You shouldn't be here." "Neither should you," she shot back, her heart racing. "What are you doing? This place is a mess." David reached out, gripping her arm. It was a gesture both firm and comforting. "We need to go. There are people here, trapped, some need us. But if we don't leave now, we might get caught up in the fire." Mark leaned out of the SUV, concern etched across his face. "Sarah. What's going on?" She turned her head briefly, but her gaze flickered back to David. "I can't leave them. Not now." "Talk to him. He's your past, but you have to think about your present." Tom's voice broke through like a siren, but it only added to the chaos in her mind. The flames danced higher in the distance, an angry reminder of what could happen if they lingered too long. "Your family is in danger." David's voice rose above the panic, his grip tightening. "You don't know what's out there or how many are coming. You have to trust me." The girls peeked through the back window, worry threading their features. Emma's eyes locked onto Sarah's, a silent plea for safety. David's urgency shook her resolve. She missed him desperately, yet could she really trust him after all these years? Sarah knew what she had to do, she had to protect her girls no matter the cost. "Okay," she breathed, feeling the world shift again as she made her choice. "You're right. We need to help them, but I can't leave Lily and Emma." David nodded, stepping back slightly but still close enough for her to feel his presence. "I'll help you get them out. Just trust me." There perched the weight of decisions, all crashing upon her like waves. She looked back at the gathering of people. For a moment, all she saw were faces lost, desperate, fighting against despair. This was her heart's tug-of-war, a critical choice between history and current reality. Then, out of the corner of her eye, she caught sight of movement. More figures appeared in the distance. Panic erupted again in her chest. "Sarah, we have to move now." Mark shouted, his voice urgent. "Wait." She turned back to David, feeling a crack forming in her voice. "What do we do?" "Follow me." he yelled, already sprinting toward the nearest exit. She took a breath, one last look at her family, before choosing to leap into the unknown with him. But as they started to run toward safety, the ground shook violently beneath them again. An explosion not far off erupted, sending flames high into the sky. "Run!" Sarah screamed, her heart pounding with fear. In that moment, she realized that reuniting with David wasn't just about her past. It was about survival and the choices that lay ahead, choices that could lead to redemption or disaster, but could she trust him again? And what future awaited them on the other side of this chaos? As they darted towards the flames, Sarah felt the full weight of her decision pressing heavy on her chest. Would this collaboration forge new alliances, or would it be a mistake she couldn't outrun? The ground trembled beneath them, and the acrid scent of smoke filled the air. As they sprinted away from the chaos, Sarah could hear the cries of the people behind them getting fainter. But the pang of guilt tugged at her insides, leaving those who remained felt like betrayal. "Over here!" David called, veering sharply to the left, pulling her by the hand. Sarah stumbled slightly but regained her footing, keeping pace with him. His grip was steady. Together, they threaded through groups of panicked individuals, the flames licking at the edges of their vision like hungry beasts. "Do you have a plan?" She gasped between breaths, anxiety surging. The thrill of being reunited with David began to fade, replaced by the stark reality of survival. "There's a building not far from here. I scouted it earlier. It's safer, away from the flames," he said, urgency sharpening his tone. "We need to get the girls and anyone else we can trust." She nodded, determination flooding her veins. "Then let us move." Lily and Emma still peered out of the SUV, fear etched across their faces. Sarah's heart twisted. She had to reach them. "Mark!" she shouted, motioning for him to follow. "We need to get to the girls." "I got them!" Mark yelled back, already moving to the back of the vehicle. The moment felt like an eternity as they sprinted towards the telltale blue of the SUV, flames crackling behind them. They reached the car, and Mark threw open the door. "Get in!" he barked, his eyes wide with urgency. As the girls scrambled into the vehicle, Sarah felt a flicker of relief. But it extinguished quickly when she saw the thick smoke billowing closer. "Now!" David urged, grabbing the door and slamming it shut. "We need to go." Mark jumped into the driver's seat, adrenaline rushing through his veins. "This way." As they fled down the street, the roar of chaos faded, but not the feared eye in the silence of the car. Sarah turned to look at David, who sat right next to her. His face glistened with sweat, and yet something beneath his rough exterior danced like an ember. She remembered the warmth of their friendship, and she clung to that memory like a lifeline. "What if we lose each other again?" Sarah asked, the words spilling out before she could contain them. David's gaze bore into hers, intense and unyielding. "We won. Not this time. I promise." Tension filled the air as they navigated away from the chaos. The city skyline loomed ahead, barely visible through the haze. They sped toward the unknown, and with each passing moment, Sarah's heart struggled between hope and fear, but amid the worry, something deeper stirred. Could she really let David back in? The weight of their past lingered like an unanswered question. They were now on the fringes of a neighborhood that looked relatively untouched, but before they could fully settle, another explosion erupted in the distance. It sent a shudder through the vehicle. Mark gripped the steering wheel tightly, eyes wide with shock. "Not again," she whispered, as panic burst through her like shattered glass. David noticed her tremble and placed his hand on her shoulder. "Stay focused. We're getting through this together." The car's tires screeched as they rounded a corner, and Sarah's heart raced. But beyond that swirling fear, a desperate determination began to spark within her. "Where do we go next?" she asked, her voice almost steady. "Trust me, I have a safe place in mind," David replied, not breaking eye contact. But just as Sarah felt a spark of belief, a loud crash echoed nearby. It was closer this time. What was happening? Would they be able to reach safety, or was this merely the beginning of another round in this unfolding nightmare? The true revelation awaited them as their fate twisted further into the unforgiving night. Would surviving this nightmare bring them closer, or would the past tear them apart again? In the moments that followed, time felt elastic, stretching and contracting with each tremor of the earth beneath them. In her heart, Sarah felt the heaviness of choices scattered like ashes in the wind. "Hold on!" Mark shouted, his grip firm on the wheel as another loud rumble echoed. They were losing daylight, the horizon painted in hues of orange and smoky gray. "Where's south the safe place, David?" Sarah pressed, her heart pounding wildly. The knot in her stomach tightened at the uncertainty. "Just ahead," he replied, his voice steady, but the tension in his jaw told her he felt the weight of their situation. The girls shifted in the back, clutching each other and casting worried glances toward the front of the car. "Keep your eyes on the road," Sarah urged, her protective instincts flaring. The rumbles of explosions were reminders that their journey was far from over, yet she pushed forward with each beat of her heart. Finally, they turned down an alley, and her breath caught. The building loomed large, an old, sturdy structure that had weathered time's passage with strength. "This is it." David pointed, his excitement infectious, yet uncertainty clawed at her chest. Would this place offer refuge or just lead them deeper into danger? As Mark pulled into the lot, Sarah's gaze flickered to the fire behind them, its red glow growing darker as they left it behind. It was as if she was shedding a skin, one marked by grief, loss, and uncertainty. They tumbled out of the SUV, the air electric with fear and hope mingling together. "Let us hurry." Mark guided them towards the entrance. Fear ricocheted in Sarah's spirit, but hope sparked inside her chest. This could be a new chapter. Inside the building, chaos faded into silence for a moment, an eerie pause that granted them a rare chance to breathe. The dim light illuminated the faces of people gathered, some familiar, most not. Whispers filled the air, "They're here. They made it." The sense of community came rushing back, igniting something in Sarah she thought she had lost. "Help's here!" David shouted. Their presence brought more than just physical safety, it ignited a rallying spirit among the people, shared struggles blossoming into unspoken solidarity. Sarah's heart swelled as she saw others rallying around, with hugs shared, hands clasped, and shoulders leaning together in unity. She realized something profound: she wasn't alone anymore. Despite the chaos swirling outside, a few residents began distributing water bottles and blankets, offering comfort like a balm. "Thank you," she whispered to an elderly woman who met her gaze with a warm smile. In that moment, she felt the weight of her earlier burdens dissolve, replaced by collective resilience. "Sarah," David said softly, pulling her focus back. "I might know someone who can help. A friend of mine is organizing a shelter farther out from here. We can take everyone." Mark put a hand on Sarah's shoulder. "They'll help until we can find a long-term solution. We have to do this together." Tears pricked her eyes as she looked at the faces around her. Some were frightened, others stoic, but all were determined to move forward. The swirling chaos outside could not extinguish this glimmer of hope, and suddenly the decision felt clear. "Yes," she replied, her heart racing with newfound clarity. "We need to go." "Gather everyone," David directed, and she felt eagerness and anticipation fill the room. It was exhilarating. In a world scorched with fear, they could blaze a new path. Together, Lily and Emma rushed up to her, bright-eyed and seemingly relieved. "Are we safe now, Mommy?" Emma asked, her voice small, innocent. "Yeah, baby, we're safe here," Sarah promised, wrapping her arms around them. The burden of uncertainty lifted slightly as the warmth of her daughters grounded her. Before long, they began to file out, the group becoming linked like branches of a tree, solid and supportive. As they stepped back into the outside air, the flames faded into the distance like a nightmarish dream, leaving room for a dawn filled with hope. As they made their way toward the waiting transport, a thought crossed Sarah's mind: they could rebuild. No longer would she battle the storms alone. The community, the harrowing fire, and the awakening of hope were all crucial parts of her journey. Behind her, she glanced back at Mark, seeing the quiet understanding in his eyes even through the shadows of their tumultuous past. And beside her, she met David's gaze, the man who had once been part of her dreams, but now had become an essential ally in this struggle. With a deep breath, she turned away from the fire in the distance. They were moving towards something brighter, a shared future built not just on hope, but on the intimacy of hard-fought growth. Together, she whispered to herself as they moved further away from the past and into a future carved by courage. This was the moment of transformation, not just hers, but for all of them. The scars would remain, but they would serve as a testament to resilience, connections, and the unyielding spirit of family and community. And as the first rays of dawn pierced through the darkness, Sarah knew that this was not the end. It was just the beginning. A chance to let love blossom amidst the ashes. Don't wait another moment to be part of this journey. Subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss the next exclusive stories that uplift and inspire. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and show your support. Share your thoughts in the comments about this powerful ending. You need to share your feelings. And share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to experience this uplifting transformation. This is the moment to stand with us, true fans.